Society operates on a comforting assumption. If you test well, graduate at the top of your class, and secure the corner office, your choices will be bulletproof. We equate raw intellect with perfect rationality. Yet daily observations defy this completely. Brilliant physicians smoke, master investors panic sell, and genius executives steer billion-dollar empires straight into the ground. Even a grandmaster can calculate 20 moves ahead and still make a fatal blunder on the board. The disconnect happens because the capacity to solve complex equations is entirely distinct from the neurological machinery that dictates human behavior. Having a massive IQ is like dropping a 1,000-horsepower engine into a car. It dictates how fast you can travel, but it does absolutely nothing to prevent a reckless driver from steering you right off a cliff. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans navigated a landscape defined by immediate physical survival, not complex data analysis or infinite digital feeds. In a forest filled with predators, pausing to methodically calculate the probability of danger meant death. Survival favored those who reacted to rustling leaves with instant, unthinking fear. The biological processor sitting inside your skull remains precisely tuned for that ancient environment. It has not received a meaningful anatomical update in roughly 200,000 years. You are now attempting to navigate the most overwhelming technological and financial landscape ever constructed, relying on hardware optimized for the Stone Age. When a mind built for sudden danger tries to process a plunging stock portfolio, it defaults to panic, rendering intellect entirely irrelevant. To map exactly how this biological misfire happens, Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman divided the human mind into two distinct operational systems. System 1 is the autopilot. It is rapid, completely automatic, and governed by the amygdala. When you hear a loud noise and flinch, that ancient emotional center starts pulsing. It requires zero effort to use. System 2 is the analytical engine. This is where your high-level intellect resides. When you solve a math problem or plan for retirement, the prefrontal cortex slowly lights up, calculating variables and projecting outcomes. But System 2 carries a severe biological cost. It drains massive amounts of energy. Because the brain wants to conserve fuel, the logical engine is inherently lazy, and it powers down whenever possible. So when a brilliant individual is exhausted by back-to-back meetings, stressed by debt, or overwhelmed by constant notifications, the brain protects itself. It shuts off the heavy machinery of System 2 and hands the steering wheel directly back to primitive emotional impulse. Operating on autopilot, System 1 relies on mental shortcuts to make snap judgments. In modern environments, these shortcuts become cognitive biases, invisible traps that catch the sharpest minds. Take confirmation bias. A highly educated person rarely uses their analytical power to objectively search for the truth. Instead, they weaponize their vast intellect to flawlessly defend the opinions they already hold, ignoring any data that contradicts them. Then there is the curse of overconfidence. Achieving extreme mastery in a single narrow discipline creates an illusion of universal competence. A genius in engineering will falsely assume they are naturally gifted at investing, completely blind to the vastness of their own ignorance. This specific strain of hubris generated one of the most spectacular corporate implosions in Silicon Valley history. Raw intelligence built the initial vision, but a total refusal to accept contradictory evidence led to fraud and ruin. When a venture does start failing, the sunk cost fallacy activates.
Smart people will pour years of their life and millions of dollars into a doomed business model simply because abandoning it requires them to admit defeat. The ego hijacks the spreadsheet. We saw this paralyze an industry giant. Entire boardrooms filled with top-tier executives watched the smartphone market evolve, yet they clung to their legacy hardware. They had all the data, but lacked the psychological flexibility to act on it. A high IQ does not offer immunity to these cognitive traps. Dangerously, it does the exact opposite. It equips a brilliant person with the vocabulary and logic required to beautifully rationalize their most irrational, emotion-driven mistakes. These internal biological flaws do not exist in a vacuum. You live in an economy specifically engineered to exploit them. Trillion-dollar digital architectures, marketing algorithms, and infinite feeds are designed with a single goal: manufacturing artificial urgency. A flashing timer or a viral trend triggers a fear of missing out, intentionally bypassing your analytical system too. This orchestrated hype drives devastating financial choices. Intelligent investors ignore basic due diligence and pour fortunes into trending platforms, reacting to manufactured social momentum rather than reading the balance sheets. The trap closes when an intelligent person believes they are the sole author of their choices. In reality, their environment pulls the biological levers, and they are simply acting out a psychological script written by someone else. You cannot delete millions of years of evolution from your brain. No textbook, degree, or level of raw intellect will ever erase your cognitive biases. The only reliable defense mechanism is introducing intentional friction into your life, a mandatory pause. Intelligence is merely a genetic lottery ticket. Rational decision-making is a deliberate, engineered discipline. Your future will not be determined by the raw processing power of your mind, but by the daily systems you build to govern it.